You can be found at any location. It's trendy and gaining popularity. This is the type of heat that cannot be ignored. When it comes to hearsay, they are quite wild. People are talking, screens are lighting up, and more. Someone else's name has been added to the mix, and it is tied to yours in unexpected ways. Rumors of ties, hidden facts, and secret linkages are spreading like wildfire. Who accuses who? Exactly. In all honesty, what's going on? One thing is clear. Your name is presently a hot subject of discussion, and everyone is asking the same question. Is there someone who actually supports you? There is widespread perception that something is occurring. They get the sense that you are sneaking about, making connections late at night, or attempting to patch things up with someone who should have been gone for a long time. You do not publish or explain, and for some reason, the lack of affirmation exacerbates their paranoia, more than the facts of the situation could possibly accomplish. They are searching for hints in how you smile, the music you submit, and the timestamps that appear in your articles. When they are unable to find answers, they create their own. Others believe you are ghosting everyone in order to blatantly amuse someone, while others believe you have reconnected with an old sweetheart. Essentially, you are just existing, breathing, and living. However, they see this as suspicious. Your absence of speaking generates a considerable quantity of noise. It rattles cages, disrupts comfort zones, and undermines the concept of closure. Because if you are genuinely done, if you have truly moved on, why does your energy still appear to be so strong? In truth, the mystery does not lie in what you are doing. Rather, it is the reason they remain so popular. The fact that you are not explaining yourself is the reason they are still discussing your detachment, which does not seem to be an effort to evade the problem. Rather, it looks to be a plan, as if you know something that others don't, as if you already have one and are too modest to brag about it. The fact that they expected mayhem from you is enough to motivate them to act. They expected animosity, a response, and disruption. You, on the other hand, conferred on them elegance, growth, and tranquil elevation. In other words, they are unable to digest the information since they are habituated to loud noises. You supplied them with quiet. They were used to seeking drama, but you proceeded calmly. Now that the stillness has been broken, they are desperately attempting to fill it with their own voices. However, they are entirely ignorant that your name is still the loudest thing in the room. They claimed you were a chapter that needed to be closed, a lesson to be learned, a mistake to be forgotten. They claim to be over you, but the others around them don't believe it. When they mention your name, their demeanor shifts significantly. The tension in their voice is too harsh to be pleasant. Their quiet isn't neutral. Instead, it emanates defensiveness. At this stage, questions are being asked and not muttered behind their backs. Instead, they are being set out. Are you still speaking with them when they come up? Why are you behaving differently than usual? The charge is that someone is still attached to you, that they are secretly checking on you, and that they are reminiscing about the past when they should be moving on with their lives. The answer is no. As predicted, denial occurs fast. However, vitality does not lie. The way they hold themselves gives a clear indicator of what they are saying. When your name comes up, people will recoil. They will become quiet. When you publish anything strong, their gaze will be glued on you anytime you are on TV. Their comments do not convey the truth. People notice their emotions, emotional distance, tendency to wander off in the midst of a discussion, and unspoken comparisons. Everything is now starting to make sense. They could be physically there with another person, but their soul is trailing behind. They are trapped in memories, mistakes, and events that they cannot relive. Even after you left, your enthusiasm did not fade, and people around them see it as static in the air. It is unnerving, exhilarating, and undeniable. They are confused, stuck between sentiments of betrayal and longing. They have a tough time defending themselves because the truth is too heavy. Your silence is more audible to them than the commotion in their existence. However, they refuse to acknowledge it. They don't want to accept that they don't feel the same way about everyone else except you. You did not get here by chance. You were guided. If something in your soul is stirring, do not dismiss it. Tap Join to get access to unique information, prophetic insights, and a community of purpose-driven individuals. This is not just a membership. It's time for you to come into harmony. Take the steps necessary to become the person you were meant to be. Welcome to the chosen. As a consequence, they fumble, they avoid, and they play about. On the other hand, pretending no longer protects them from what is absolutely evident. And the whispers are growing because, no matter how many times they say it's over, everyone is starting to realize that they've never abandoned you. Not really. Not in terms of energy or emotions. Despite the fact that they are now standing next to someone else. Your presence casts a long shadow on their universe. You then exited the room. You did the healing. You cut the cords there. You closed the door. However, it continued to open and shut. Your energy, however, clings to them like smoke. It is not your fault, even if you are far away from them. You were the one who let them go. It was you that freed them. They failed to comprehend that leaving behind someone who had raised their soul would leave an echo, one that would upset their spirit during solitary thought. Instead of reaching out, responding, or hoping, you stopped doing all three. They are aware of you everywhere, however. They misplaced something vital. Awakening was the greatest word to describe you. You were more than just another individual because of the clarity you provided. Every superficial relationship now seems like background noise. People try to duplicate you in other people, but it never works. Your energy has been depleted, and everything in their surroundings now seems empty. Not because they relied on you, but because your presence gave them peace. Your absence disrupted their rhythm. Further, that calm cannot be duplicated. Those in their near area are ignorant of the shift, but they can detect it. For example, consider how your name generates disputes and how your recollection influences the ambience in a room. When you are mentioned, the atmosphere grows denser. Your name is now a test of their honesty, healing, and the fiction that they are trying to sell, namely that they have moved on. They can't dodge the responses since your name is now under investigation. As opposed to being burdened by the past, they are disturbed by the possibilities. They are aware that, like you, they might have ascended. They understand that they might have chosen ego, confusion, or convenience. You're reminding them of what they've let go of. With every victory you announce, and every light up you reveal, spiritual warfare disguised as casual regret. They were compelled to study something they did not want to learn. The lesson keeps coming back again and again. Those in their near area are ignorant of the shift, but they can detect it. For example, consider how your name generates disputes and how your recollection influences the ambience in a room. When you are mentioned, the atmosphere grows denser. It is hard for them to escape the responses because your name has become a litmus test for their honesty, capacity to heal, and the lie that they continue to sell, which is that they have moved on rather than being haunted by the past. They are plagued with possibilities. They are aware that, like you, they might have ascended. They understand that they may have chosen ego, confusion, or convenience as a consequence. Every success you announce and every glow-up you show is a continual reminder of what they've let go of. Spiritual warfare disguised as casual regret. You turned out to be the lesson they didn't want to learn, and that lesson continues to haunt them. If your heart is overflowing with God's blessings, let that love radiate. Click the huge thank you button and donate $10 or more to sow seeds of faith that will touch countless lives. Your giving exemplifies His richness. Be a channel for His grace, and watch His kingdom grow through you. They are dissecting everything, including how you have been dressed, smiling, tagging odd things, and even how you have stopped responding to provocations. According to them, that type of peace can only be found via love, connection, and someone who can make you happy in private. Their reality does not make sense when you contemplate the prospect of feeling this home on your own. Your glow, however, is not caused by a love connection. Rather, it is the outcome of a release. You have let go of the chaos. You separate yourself from others who needed access to your pain in order to feel important. You stop trying to explain yourself to those who were determined to misunderstand you. They believe you are hiding something since you have moved silently. Climb to a greater height without producing any noise, becoming too silent to track. They do not want to admit this, but what they are truly seeing is a metamorphosis. This is the kind of radiance that can be achieved with no filter, shot, or fake relationship combination. There has been a flurry of allegations. People are urging someone to confess not because they have seen anything physical, but because they sense disquiet in their soul. Words like "they are still talking," "they never actually departed," and "they are concealing something." These are instances of the pressures that individuals apply. The argument is not about what they're doing. Rather, it is about what they refuse to admit. When your name is spoken, the atmosphere changes. The justifications they provide are stuttering. They're over-explaining and evading the question. And nobody believes them. Not because they are awful liars, but because the truth seeps through the gaps in their energy whenever they are there. You are not only not physically present, but you are also not communicating, phoning, or showing up. However, your presence may be discovered in every corner and cranny. The accusations are only a surface-level response to something more substantial. People are aware of the link that exists in the background. A single unbroken thread and a door that was closed but never locked. Being caught isn't the only issue here. The problem is being brought to light. The fact that they are still interacting with you is not the reason for alarm. The underlying worry is that they continue to want to, and the person they are with is aware of it, despite their inability to compete with what they cannot see. They are aware of the pull, which is comparable to gravity. Their instincts are screaming, and their heart is aware of the situation. Despite their inability to admit it, they not only feel frightened, but also invisible in the presence of a connection that remains silent. It is even more sad because the accused does not even need to have done anything wrong to seem guilty. This is because their energy communicates, which includes the way they hesitate, get defensive, and alter their demeanor. When you are named, it reveals the reality. They are still linked to you, and there is no lie, denial, or debate that can remove what is already imprinted on their aura. You did not get here by chance. You were guided. If something in your soul is stirring, do not dismiss it. Tap Join to get access to unique information, prophetic insights, and a community of purpose-driven individuals. This is not just a membership. It's time for you to come into harmony. Step into the person you were created to be, welcomed by the selected rather than troubled by yourself. They are plagued by the version of themselves that disappeared when they had to let you go. The claims are harmful, but not because they are false. Rather, they are hurting because they indicate a desire that people have been unable to express. The whole world is now aware of it. It is not you who is the adversary in this story. Instead, you are the mirror. They can't bring themselves to face this reflection. Everything has changed for them since you entered their lives. You did not just enter the scene. Rather, you adjusted the frequency. They buried something deep, but you were able to find it. Your actions put into question their roles, the masks they were wearing, and the people they were attempting to impress. Your bond was both passionate and catalytic. It woke them up, and everything in their immediate proximity began to quake. They began to think and move differently. They questioned things they had previously accepted. Without a doubt, the patterns that they were taught to repeat were disrupted as a consequence of the seeds of self-awareness that you sowed. You were not only not love in the traditional sense, but you were also a reflection, a trigger, and a light that was too brilliant to ignore. And when you left, the effect was not diminished. Rather, it drew the attention of friends, family members, and partners alike. The transformation was obvious to them. Some individuals disliked it, while others saw it as a danger, owing to the fact that your presence not only affected them, but also exposed everyone else. They began to scrape the falsehoods that they had become used to live with, and their previously cherished illusions began to crumble. You did not only shatter the mold, you fully broke it. And there is always resistance to the kind of disruption under discussion here. They are now surrounded by people who are seeking to entice them back to the prior version of themselves. The version that followed the rules, carried out the regulations, and performed submissively. Many of the same people feel that you are responsible for the change. You were recognized as the scapegoat, disruptor, and wildcard that they were unable to control. It became well known that your name was associated with defiance, clarity, and growth. That is scary for those who like being controlled. However, this did not mark the end of the ripple. Every place they visited, every discussion they had, and every choice they started to reconsider were all influenced by it. You were the one who broke the pattern of spies being snapped. This is why there is conflict. Why is there gossip? And why is your name so memorable? You not only adored them, but also awoke them from their slumber. Furthermore, the whole environment, which they had previously accepted, is now striving to force them back to sleep. You were not just an experience, but also the catalyst for metamorphosis. The aftershock of your energy is still felt by others who have never met you, but have experienced your presence via the changes that they can no longer deny. Some individuals in the room are not hostile to you, but those who are most vociferous use your name as if it were an insult. Someone has been secretly and discreetly speaking up for you. Different things are stated about you behind closed doors, in hushed tones, and with unknown spaces between phrases. When you are not the intended receiver of a message, the statement, "They are not the villain you think they are," may slip through the gaps. Someone has discovered the truth, and they will no longer allow falsehoods to define your identity. They were there when the events occurred. They looked at the disintegration from within. They are aware of who committed a grave error, who gave up or did not show up for you. Despite the fact that they are not yet ready to shout it from the rooftops, they are tired of treating you as if you were an inconvenience. The same people who used to drag your name are now hearing a new tale, one flavored with responsibility and frightening facts. It is prompting them to question their viewpoint. Some individuals in the room are not hostile to you, but those who are most vociferous use your name as if it were an insult. Someone has been discreetly defending you behind closed doors, speaking quietly and uncertainly. You are addressed differently when you are not the intended receiver of a message. The phrase, "They are not the villain you believe they are," may slip between the gaps. Someone has discovered the truth, and they will no longer allow falsehoods to define your identity. They were there when the events occurred. They looked at the disintegration from within. They are aware of who committed a grave error, who gave up or did not show up for you. Despite the fact that they are not yet ready to shout it from the rooftops, they are tired of treating you as if you were an inconvenience. The same people who were formerly complicit in degrading your reputation are now hearing a new tale, one flavored with responsibility and painful but startling realities. It is prompting them to question their viewpoint. It is conceivable that the person defending you dislikes you, but retaining respect does not need love. They are aware of your excellent nature. They remember how you handled betrayal and how you walked away without setting the whole world on fire. Now that they are watching the chaos without you, they understand that you never needed to make up a tale since the truth would eventually come out. This is a shifting of whispers due to the power of your quiet. Their commitment to the version of events that represented you negatively is waning. Your reluctance to play the victim, as well as your lack of public repercussions, has prompted individuals to reconsider their prior beliefs. The individual who is defending you is not trying to raise you to the rank of hero. Rather, they are just determined to keep others from removing the truth about what you brought to the table. People are being taken aside and instructed to be honest, and they have started to do so. You know it wasn't all of them. This wave is spreading into circles that were previously only filled with negativity. This marks both the beginning of responsibility and the beginning of uncertainty and hesitation. Despite the fact that you were not there to hear it, your presence is being noticed in locations where your voice has not been heard. In other words, there's no need to defend the truth. This is the beauty of truth. However, there are times when it is still possible to receive one quietly and strategically from someone who is aware of the truth and cannot continue to remain silent, while others rewrite your legacy in lies because they were surrounded by praises, affirmation, and support on the surface level. They thought they had made the correct choice. They were able to convince themselves that the mob was the right decision. Your conduct was unpredictable, and you were too real and passionate. Applause, homogeneity, and comfort were all provided by the audience. However, there was no increase. They picked what was easy, pleasant, and consistent with the story they were frightened to question. At this moment, however, the applause has ceased, and the sense of sadness is overpowering. People are being taken aside and instructed to be honest, and they have started to do so. You know it wasn't all of them. This wave is spreading into circles that were previously only filled with negativity. This marks both the beginning of responsibility and the beginning of uncertainty and hesitation. Despite the fact that you are not there to hear it, your presence is sensed in locations where your voice has not been heard. There is no need to defend the truth. This is the beauty of truth. However, there are times when it is possible to get one secretly and strategically from someone who is aware of the truth and cannot continue to keep silent, while others rewrite your history in falsehoods because they have been surrounded by accolades, affirmation, and support. On the surface, they felt they had made the correct choice. They were able to convince themselves that the mob was the best option since your conduct was unpredictable and intense. Applause, homogeneity, and comfort were provided by the audience, but there was no development. They picked what was easy, pleasant, and consistent with the story they were frightened to question. At this moment, however, the applause has ceased, and the sense of sadness is overpowering. There was a trade-off between depth and noise, or connection and wallop. Your gift of soul healing and truth was given, but it forced them to face themselves, something they were unprepared to accomplish. As a result, they raced in the direction of the familiar, loud, and basic. They believed they could disguise the link by utilizing diversions. However, after the celebration ended and the audience ceased cheering, they were left with echoes. When they heard the echoes, it reminded them of all they'd lost: calmness, genuineness. And you, the same people who took them away from you, are now the ones who betray them. Their smiles had transformed to smirks on their cheeks. Rather of being flooded with love, conditional validation is supplied. They pick an atmosphere that is full with performance and politics. In the middle of the turbulence that exists between them, they remember your voice, your stability, and your honesty. Things they thought they didn't need are now something they want. Instead, the fact that they know you did not pursue them heightens your sorrow. You did not plead even once. It is not correct that you competed with the audience. You let them leave in an elegant and dignified manner. That is the peace they can't avoid. You did not just lose them, they also lost you. At this point, they are unable to avoid the necessity to reconcile with the choice they made out of fear rather than trust. They found your serenity boring. At this moment, they know it was for protection. They thought that your restrictions were a type of surrender. They are now conscious of their role in its construction.